the resources that are available for the Scandinavian countries, and actually let's just say the northern part of the planet, and the climatic changes that we're going to undergo are going to bond and juxtapose and create actually a fairly bright future for those areas. Once the domination of this central bank and warfare model crumbles and the inventiveness and the initiative of the populations are let loose. We have to understand that the central bank and warfare model extends to a level of mind control that is truly staggering, where these individuals are attempting to warp history, deny knowledge in huge amounts to everybody on the planet, and keep everything that they can possibly keep hidden only to themselves. Once we see the actual fracturing of the financial structure that gives them power, then some of the other areas of their control will break as well, and we'll see certain areas of the planet become, in our data, it shows certain areas of the planet becoming very much as though productivity has been stepped upon for centuries and it's suddenly let loose. And the areas will extend in the entire northern region. There is going to be a bond that will extend from Siberia all the way across the planet into Canada and bond all of those peoples and nations together. And they will join with people at the other end of the planet, that is to say in South Africa and South America, and produce some truly amazing things relative to the new electrics. That's actually the hotbed, so to speak, of the new electrics that we see coming out. It appears to be a level of knowledge and understanding, plus a certain level of crystalline components that are in the far north that don't exist in the main temperate zones. And I don't know what those crystalline components are just yet. We don't have any definitive answer on that, as well as the ability of those individuals in that structure to reorganize themselves after the collapse. And that's a big issue. We don't really have a lot of time to devote to that, but the very nature of the people that are living in Scandinavia, in spite of the fact of recent immigration and the alteration of the mindset that brought with it, still maintain a level of interpersonal harmony that will allow them to overcome some of the stress points of the future better than people that are living around the equator and in other parts of the planet. As far as the coastline and stuff goes, again, the data seems to favor north of 40 as being more stable than below 40 degrees of latitude. And the further north you go up into the 60s, the more that stability is assured. So I'm not looking for, it would surprise me to see vast changes of coastline in a negative sense around those areas that are north of 40. There will be some level of sea alteration, but again, because of the nature of the oblate spheroid that is the Earth, much more of the alteration of the sea levels will occur at the equator than will occur at the poles. And in spite of the level of data that we have at the moment, there doesn't appear to be a major crustal shift that is in the near future. It may be beyond 2013, and our data sets just trail off miserably beyond that. But between now and 2013, while there's going to be all kinds of Earth changes and solar activity, we don't have any definitive data set that we can look at that maintains itself over time for the idea of a large crustal shift. End of statement.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask a question that came from a reader who goes into the dating precisely of your data. I think you heard about the discussion about the 21st of December 2012 versus the date proposed by Kaliman, which is the 28th of October 2011. So does
Yes.
your data tell you anything in relation to these two dates, knowing that the 2012 date is sort of the, let's say, mainstream date, and then there is this 28th October 2011 date, which is not widely recognized but being looked at carefully by people like Kaliman and astrologers, and I've also looked at it. Do you have anything about that to say?
Yes, actually, we actually have two data sets that we maintain. It's interesting about the two dates. Let's examine the latter date first. December 21, 2012, at 11:11 a.m., not p.m., is the alignment that was deliberately created by Pope Gregory under the auspices or under the direction of the powers that be at that time. They took a German mathematician of some note who assembled a team, and then they used texts that theoretically do not exist. This is to say, many of the Mayan books that were said to have been burned, in fact, were not burned, and they were carefully crated up and taken back to the Vatican as part of the payoff for the expeditions and the slicing of the planet between the Spanish and the Portuguese by the popes of that time. Now, when Pope Gregory had the calendar redone, they went to considerable work. That is to say, a team of 15 mathematicians led by this particular German mathematician spent some 5 months in the reconciliation level alone to get the Gregorian calendar to align specifically with the end of the Mayan calendar on these particular numbers. So they did it from a numerological viewpoint. They wanted the 1111 AM because 11 is the number of mastery. It is one number beyond divinity. And the 1111 combination brings you to 22, which is their number for sainthood or ascension. And then the whole December 12, 2012, if you start looking at the numerological values that are inherent within that, you see that it continually points back to the broken cross, or the what's known as the swastika. This swastika has been tainted by the use by Hitler et al., but in fact it's a very meaningful symbol that derives extremely ancient. I mean, even the Jain, who go back millions of years, found that symbol handed to them as opposed to discovering it. And here's what it really means. If you look down on a swastika and the idea of a broken cross, it's both the double cross indicating the four-sided pyramid, or five-sided counting the bottom, but it also, in this particular instance, represents a solar effect. The solar effect can be seen from the sun or from outside the earth, but we can't really see it from here. But there are these four streams of activity that go from the magnetic field of the earth up to the sun, and because of the rotation of both the sun and the earth, these streams are not held as continuous straight lines, but in fact bend and twist. Now, they don't really twist like a spiral in a candy or something. They just twist at this one particular point, and so from an outside view, they form the swastika. So the swastika is actually encoded in the way in which the 2012 date was worked out. It was encoded as a reference to solar activity that they understand will occur at that time. And the thinking at the time from the Gregorian calendar, Pope Gregory et al., relates entirely to these hidden level Mayan books that I believe the Vatican still possesses, which go to great detail, according to references I've read about those things that were theoretically burned. These went to some great detail as to the solar stuff that was going to occur. Now, I actually am of the opinion that Kalaman is much more correct than people would give him credence for, but that nonetheless, the actual end date of the calendar is the 2012 date, the end date of the long count. It may not be as meaningful as Kalaman's date, though, because Kalaman is actually working on a different view of the conjunction of the calendars, and he's discussing the beginning of the end rather than the end of the end, if we want to look at it that way. So his is much more pertinent to us because it is the point at which we would take that step. Now, as I'd referred to earlier, from a 0-0 class civilization into a class 1 civilization, that will be the opportune moment, that will be the Kyrios, the quality of time will favor humans doing something magnificent in October of 2011 onward, and that the viewpoint from the powers that be is that their particular point of maximum stress, danger, risk, and opportunity is the 2012 date.